Greetings and welcome to Teaching Tips and Thoughts. In this discussion, I am going to look at some creative uses for release conditions within D2L. So let's take a look here at some ideas. First of all, what do we mean by a release condition? Well, it's some criterion that has to be met so that materials can be accessed. And we often use this as date and time release of assignments and locking of assignments when you no longer want them to be available. So you can turn assignments on and off so students can access them. However, there are many more types that can be used, linking to assignment completion or grade on an assignment, or even accessing various materials. So I want to look at a couple examples of those first of all that I use. And one of those that I use is checklist completion. They must complete the checklist to move on to the next lesson. Why? For me, it just means the student acknowledge assignments from the previous lesson, that they realize everything that has been assigned. How does that work? Well, let's take a quick look at that. And what we see here is an example of one of my lessons. And the very first thing in the lesson is the syllabus checklist. They need to do that in order to access lesson 1. In fact, I put that in the title that this must be completed. Now it's in lesson 1. So the way I set up the release conditions, I want the students to see that lesson 1 is there. But when they first start, the only thing they will see is the checklist. So if they didn't complete it earlier, they now see that. But each of the folders within it is blocked out. It has a condition that says they have to have completed the syllabus checklist in order to access it. So all the student would originally see is just that syllabus checklist. And as I tell them, it doesn't mean they completed all that. Maybe they decided not to do an extra credit assignment. Maybe they weren't able to finish all of the readings or lectures on time. It's just their acknowledgement that things should have been completed. Now, a second example that I use is a grade on an assignment. So I can hide an assignment once students have completed them. Now I use this in one thing right now, which is where I give a 48-hour extension. No questions asked. All they have to do is submit a request for it. Now that works this way. So let's take a look at it. And what I have here, let's scroll down to the assignments. And the very first thing in each assignment folder is this 48-hour extension. However, it is only visible if, and let me uncover that, it is only visible if they have not received a grade on this assignment. So once they receive a grade, it's hidden, which means the student who uses it in lesson 1 won't have to see it in lesson 2 and know that they can no longer access it, that it's no longer there. It's simply gone and will disappear from their files. So they'll no longer be able to see that. So it's one way to have it there each lesson as they need it. But then it disappears once they actually use it. And I've approved that extension. Now a couple of other ideas that could be used, and I haven't used these yet, although I'm thinking about incorporating them. One, you could do releasing materials based on accessing specific content. I want the students to watch a video before doing an assignment. Well, it makes maybe they'll need to access this important material. So what we could do is set up, and I'm thinking of trying this out with my labs in one class to see how it works. So what we could do is go into my lab assignment, which is a lab quiz here. And I want to say that they have to be able to have seen the instructions first. So we can open up the release conditions and create a new one. And in this case, it would be a content, and they must have visited a content topic. Which one do they have to visit? Well, we'd scroll down to this. This is for lab 1, and we'd find lab 1 instructions. And now we can put that release condition in, and it says that they must have visited the content for lab 1 instructions in order to be able to access this material. So they won't be able to access the lab quiz until they've gone through and at least looked at the instructions. So that's one I'm looking at. Another possibility would be having for assignments not completed. Now this is interesting that you could put a news item to pop up, but you don't want to remind all of the students, but you can have it pop up only for those students who missed a deadline. Maybe not for every assignment, but for certain important assignments. And it may be a reminder for that specific student. So we can take a quick look at how that would work. And what we would see is, let's go ahead and look at an example and go to our class news feed here. So here's one where I said lab 1 is not completed. Well, we could go into that assignment and we could edit it and we could set up a release condition. So we could create a release condition that says the only way they see this, and this is a quiz, so they have not completed a quiz attempt on the lab 1 quiz. And the only students that will then see this announcement are those who did not complete the lab 1 quiz. Those who completed it, it will be hidden from them. So those who already took an attempt, they won't see this reminder, but others will get a reminder that, hey, you missed this lab that was due and you may want to get it in. Again, I wouldn't do that for every little assignment, but for certain major assignments, it would be a good reminder for students that would pop up only for those students who need it. Those are just a couple examples of some ways to use release conditions creatively within D2L. So that concludes this discussion on creative use of release conditions in D2L. I'll be back again next time for another teaching tips and thoughts. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you next time.